Hi, you guys. Welcome back to the Ready to Rise podcast. I'm so excited. I am here with Caya, and she is a podcast producer and coach. She helps online women work, well, maybe not work. You actually lessen the work. You make it fun to get content for their podcast, and you're all about embracing our voice, embracing our stories, and all of that. So I'm excited to have you on. We are going to show how self-love can come through in a podcast and just how important it is to share our stories and share our voice.
Yes, thank you so much for having me and thank you for that intro. I'm gonna be honest, it never gets like I never get used to hearing someone else like say my like you know what I mean? Like it's just because I when I meet people, I'm like, I'm just Kaya.
It's simple, but no, you do so much. You're not just Kaya.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Audrey. And I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thanks for coming on. And I'm super excited. You guys, this is the perfect episode to have her on because I just switched recording platforms and I'm like getting out the little kinks at the beginning. And she knows, she gets it. So I love it so much. It's the best. And I want to just chat with you like about how you work with people to share their voice and to truly share okay, here's the thing. It is so vulnerable. It is so freaking vulnerable and scary sometimes as a podcaster to share my truth, to share my voice, to share what I'm going through at the moment. Like last night, I was working with my executive assistant and I was like having her go through content with me for IG because I was like, hold on, like I want to say these things, but I can't call out the person who I'm going through something with, right? Like I can't be like,
Sure.
well, this friend did this to me.
Yeah.
um and also I struggle sometimes with being vulnerable and with sharing what
Sure.
I really am going through in the moment, even though that's what's giving me the healing tools that I get to share with my clients.
Yeah.
But I get scared sharing the truth, right? And so I want to know from you, like, how do you help your clients, like,
Yeah.
get vulnerable, share the truth? Like, as a producer, like, how do you do this?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Getting vulnerable feels so uncomfortable. And it also too depends on how you grew up. Like
Mm.
I've now I'm more vulnerable, but
Hmm.
um I wasn't always this way. Like I wasn't an emotions type of person. That's I've been working on that for a long time. And so I completely understand when people are like, emotions make me uncomfortable. I'm like, trust me, I've been there. I grew up in a household where my dad used to say there's no crying in baseball. And,
Yes.
and so for me, like emotions were, we put them on the back burner. We don't really share emotions. And that was really hard for me. But I feel like since I started getting a little bit more vulnerable and like getting deeper into storytelling, my
Mhm.
content and my audience has changed.
Ooh.
And that's something that I like to like share with my clients as well is that when you start sharing from a vulnerable place and you're sharing um the things in your life that you've grown through, right?
Yeah.
You start attracting a different type of audience. You start being met with like they receive it with love. Like it's the people that you start attracting the people that really need to hear it.
Yeah.
And another thing that I always tell my clients is to always share from a healed place,
Ooh.
just because I don't ever want anyone to be triggered. And it's funny because I have she wasn't a client of mine, but a friend of mine in the podcasting industry in California told me that she just stopped her podcast
Wow.
because it was very triggering for her what
Mhm.
she was sharing. And I asked her, I said, well, when you were sharing, like, were you going through what you were sharing, and she said, yeah, I was just using it as an audio journal. And
Yeah.
I said, had you been my client, I probably would have advised against sharing that,
Yeah.
and to go live with it, just because it can be triggering, because now you're thinking about, okay, I'm going through something, I have it out there for the entire world to listen to. What are people going to think of me? I haven't even really healed myself from it,
Yeah.
right? And that just adds on to the vulnerability. If that makes you uncomfortable, it just adds on to it.
Yes. Yeah.
So I always say, like, try to share from a healed place. And then to the point that you made about, if you went through something with someone and you don't want to drag that person, I always kind of say, like, can we work around that? Which is mostly like, what have you learned? What is your perspective?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel
Versus
like,
like you said, she
yeah,
said.
exactly. Yeah. Because I mean, a while ago, I shared a reel on my Instagram about being a mom at such an early age.
Mhm.
And that kind of made me, that turned me into like a control freak. I've had to control things in my life and always had my hands on like my future. And that reel, I didn't talk about why I was a control freak. I didn't talk about what the exact situations happened during that time that made me into that, where like I had to do that. Instead, I just said, hey, look, I was a mom at 19, and this is what came out of it. And this is what happened when I started to learn how to let go and how to surrender.
Yes.
So it's kind of more about like your journey. What have you, like, how have you grown? I guess you can say, how have you grown? What is your perspective?
Literally starting the content with like, this is what I learned. Like that
Yeah,
is
exactly.
creative mode. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because so like you said, so it's an opportunity to be vulnerable, and like we can be vulnerable with it, but not not to mix that up with the fact that we might be more vulnerable if we are not sharing from a healed space. If I can
Yeah.
like recap that correctly,
Mhm.
like it's going to feel very vulnerable and trigger ourselves if we're
Mhm.
not sharing from a healed space. But,
Yeah.
like you're in the thick of it. And sometimes when you're in the thick of it too, it's hard to share things because we do exactly what I was saying, where it's like the he said, she said, or just my thoughts might be a little passive aggressive personally.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Like we're different. We're like when we're going through things, we have a different
Yeah,
mindset, right? Than when
yeah,
we already went through it. And
yeah.
so yeah, like it's a different, you meet it with a different type of perspective, I think, and a different angle,
Yes,
maybe even different
totally.
intention.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm gonna like share a little thing, but I literally after like Christmas Eve or something, I had like a huge family, like a big blow up, like a family thing, right? Like there's just a lot going on. And I literally come home and I record an episode like comparing them to an Hermes store. I just like
I love it.
mind. I was like, you can't buy like, don't go to a thrift store to buy like a Birkin, right? And it was this, and I loved the episode. I was like, yes, oh my God, I can't wait to release this. Like, this is so good.
Sure.
Thank God I never did, because like literally, like that would have been the worst thing, because of course, like in the heat of the moment, as we all know, like arguments and situations, like we're a different
Yeah.
person in the heat of the moment than we really
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, totally. I can totally, I think everyone can relate to that, because how
We,
many times have every podcaster has felt
yeah,
that way. You're like, I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to speak my piece and
yes.
share my side of the story, and then a year later you're like, "You know what? Maybe I shouldn't have done that."
Because you get in these heated, like we all get in these heated, you get in an argument with a significant other or family or whoever, and we all say things that we don't mean to say. And like, imagine on a public scale doing
Yeah.
something like that. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that could be so detrimental for, your family. I mean, you don't actually mean these things. So
Yeah, yeah. And I'm all about speaking your truth, right?
mhm.
Like I 1000% support that. I just always want it to be from a healed place.
Yeah,
and
so good.
and yeah, more of just like, okay, well, what, looking back, let's
Yeah.
just look back. And if you absolutely need to get it out in the moment, I always say just use your voice notes.
Oh, such a good idea. And we can
Yeah.
then that can remind us how we were feeling.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm like, okay, then you can go in and tap into how you were feeling. Or if you're
Yeah.
comfortable, you can maybe even share a snippet of like, look, this
Yes.
was a really hard time and this is what I went through, and whatever. But it's a really good idea to, that way you're not just throwing it out there on the
Oh, I
platform.
love it. I love that so much. Okay, so speaking of having like podcasting be a form of self-love, I want
Mhm.
to talk to you like kind of what do you mean by that? Like how can people achieve this?
I feel like it's a form to like, it's a really great way to embrace
Uh-huh.
your story, like where you're from or how you grew up or your growth. Like it's such a great way to embrace that, because when you're talking about certain things, it's a really good way to look back and to be like, wow, like look at where I was, look at where I started, and look at where I am now. And it's also a really great way to embrace your voice, because so many people like don't even like the way they sound.
I know.
Like they can't stand the sound of their
It was me.
voice.
Yeah, that was me for a while. And now I'm just like listening to myself all day long.
Yeah, like and now you're probably like, I love my voice.
Yeah, or even like you were saying, like the vulnerability of sharing a story, like it was super cringy for me for a while to like share my truth, even though like, I feel like I was sharing it in a very positive way, I guess, but like it was scary to listen back or to like put
Yeah.
myself out there. And now you're right, that has become a form of self-love, is speaking
Yeah.
my truth.
Yeah, I think
Myself.
I love that. I really do love that.
Mhm.
And I think that people, when they, I think it's also a form of self love in the sense of like, when you're putting something out there and people are connecting with you and you're seeing the community grow, that kind of like feeds into your confidence as well, where you're like, okay, I'm doing something that feels right. If you're creating from an authentic place, then that's showing up, then it's cultivating community, and then your community is like, okay, I really love this and I love your story and I connect, and then you're like, wow, like I did that shit, right? Oh, am I allowed to cuss?
Yes. Mhm.
But you're like, I did that, like look at what I did with my mic and a laptop, or look what I did in the midst of like what I was going through and a hardship or anything, right? I think that's brave. I think it's not everybody can do that. And so when people do get on the mic and share their story, I'm like, you go, because that is really great. And it's so like, it's so brave. I just love it.
Yeah. Do you ever have like, I'm taking like a little turn here, but like, do you ever have times where as a producer you have to like walk the speaker through like, I don't know, through that pump up,
Yes.
of pumping them up to be like, yeah, like share your story, like you're doing it, like,
100%. Yeah. I had a client not that long ago, and she wanted to do a podcast on mental health. And I
ooh,
thought to myself, brilliant. More
yeah,
people need to talk about mental health. And she's a Latina with mental health issues. And she's like, I want to bring light to this. I want to bring awareness to this, especially in our culture,
yeah,
because it's not talked about enough in our
yeah,
Latin culture. And so she wanted to come, her angle was, I just want to speak facts on like numbers and data. And I
uh,
was like, I love that, but I also want you to share your story
yeah.
if you can. And she was like, and it wasn't even like she was nervous. It was just more of like, my story's not that interesting.
She didn't believe,
She
yeah,
didn't believe in her story. She didn't believe in what she had been through, and she didn't believe in what she overcame. And I was like, no, girl, like, I want you to tell me, I want you to share your story with me over a call or in a coffee shop. And I literally want to walk you through why I think your story matters and why it needs to be heard and needs to be out there. And we did that. And it was so funny because she would sit there and laugh because of how uncomfortable she was with someone giving her a compliment. Like I was just like, "Oh my gosh, look at what you've been through, this look at what you have overcame. Like this is so amazing and you're so brave for sharing this, and thank you for sharing it with me. Like I appreciate that." And she just would laugh from feeling uncomfortable, and I was like,
yeah.
"You need to share this. This needs to be out there. Like you can help someone. There's someone out there that needs to hear this." So yeah, I have to. There's sometimes where people don't believe in their own story. And I think the way that I just help them through that is I have them share their story with me. And I'm like, right there, that's a really good topic. Let's write it down.
Yeah.
Let's turn that into a podcast episode. 3 ways on how you can identify if you're struggling with mental health. Or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or she'll say, it was really hard for me to find a therapist. And so I went through this route. And I'm like, perfect. That's an episode right there. The routes and the resources that you can share on how to find a therapist and how to find one that fits your budget if you don't have insurance. Like all of those little things that we think about ourselves that are like, that doesn't matter, are actually really helpful to someone out there that maybe is struggling with the same thing.
I love how you're able to do that with your clients because so often I struggled with that, especially at the beginning of podcasting, where I was like, no, people don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
People want to hear the shiny things, the exciting. Like I would compare myself. Okay, this is a crazy comparison, but like I would often compare my podcast to the what's the one, the Call Her Daddy or whatever. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Call her daddy. Yeah.
I was like, but I'm not like doing the same thing as them. Like, how could I like be like, oh, they're way up here. Yeah, of course, like they're doing different things and like
100%.
speaking about totally different things. So I was like, you can't compare yourself, but so many of us do, and then we think like, well, my story is not fun and flashy like that,
Yeah.
but it's different. You can't even think of it like that.
It's so
So,
different. Yeah, a different
mhm.
audience, different
Yeah,
purpose, different goals.
totally different. So it's cool that you're able to reframe that for your clients and like show them like, no, 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 hold on. Everything you just said is the perfect, like you could pull 3 episodes out of what you just said because people want to hear that. People want to hear about your bravery, about your story. Like that's amazing. Like just the fact, even just the journey of like that person learning to believe in themselves is
Yeah.
like huge. Like I'm such a believer in sharing the stories of others as well, or sharing my
Yes.
like story,
Mhm.
because like people see themselves in your story and they're able to see the transformation and know that they can also get there and like that they're going to be like
1,000%.
feeling that.
Yeah, 1,000%. I love it you said that because it's so true. Like we see ourselves in other people's stories all the time.
Mhm. All the time, and
Hmm.
it's huge, and so imagine, like, if she didn't have you, like, as a producer sitting there, like, hold on," let's talk about this," and, like, that even goes I mean, I'm sure that goes even beyond, like, the job description of a podcast producer because you're just like, a producer does tell me what a producer does, first of all. I know it's,
Ooh,
like,
yeah.
a lot
A
more
lot of things. It
not
depends.
really helping them through the storytelling aspect necessarily. There's
Yeah,
so
it's
much more.
so yeah, there is a lot to it, and it just depends on what my clients need. So,
Yeah.
I kind of meet my clients where they're at. Some of my clients need editing, and that's it. So
Mm.
they'll just say, "I just need editing," and I'm like, "Perfect. I will edit your podcast episodes, and I'll send it
Yes.
back to you." And they trust me to kind of piece the story together, and they'll just
Yeah.
say, if something doesn't sound right, you have creative control to take it out. So
Perfect.
that's yeah. So editor slash producer, and
Yeah.
then there's some clients that are like, I need help with like brainstorming podcast episodes. Like I
Mm.
don't know what to podcast next, and it's because
Yeah.
a lot of them are either online coaches, they have businesses, they're busy, so they don't. I mean, it takes
Yeah.
time to like
So
put your
much.
podcast content together.
Yeah. Yes.
And so that's where I come in and I help, and we sit down and we outline
Love that.
3 to 4 episodes on either their ideas, what they're going through at the moment, and how we can turn them into episodes.
Oh, I like that. Yeah,
Hmm.
because you're right. Like, it's like for all the reasons we've already spoken about, like how you can get blocked, but also the fact of just being super busy. Like, and I get these weird OCD blocks where it's like, I want things to be so structured where I'm like, hold on. Does the podcast content match the IG content, match the email list, match the text list? And it's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Like, as long as the listener is getting value, like
Yeah.
everything doesn't have to be like perfectly lined up, you know? But
Yeah.
why did I just spend hours stressing about that?
I
Like,
know, I know. And that's a lot of
yeah,
podcasters. They're like, especially if your podcast is supporting your business, right? Like a lot of online coaches,
yes.
they are very big on having everything being so cohesive. Like how you just said, their newsletters, their YouTube channel, their posts, like everything is so has to be so cohesive.
Yeah.
And so they stress out and they're like, Gaia, I don't know what to talk about for the next month. Can you
Mhm.
please help me? And I'm like, sure. We jump on a call and we start brainstorming.
Oh,
And
that's so cool.
and sometimes it's growth. So sometimes it's like,
Mhm.
Gaia, I'm stuck. I want to grow my podcast. Can you come in and audit and like take a look at what it is that I'm doing right now and what I can change in order
Yeah.
to grow or to convert, right?
Yes.
So it's a lot of everything. I'm like doing everything.
Yeah. But honestly, you know what you just like light bulb moment for me was just the mental health aspect. Like I am so into like protecting our energy and protecting our mental health and our mental space and being able to hire out somebody to protect your own mental health and stuff is huge. So I actually have an acquaintance of mine who is I know so many podcasters of course, but like I know somebody right now who's doing like seasons in her podcast,
Yeah.
and she was just saying on a call, she was just saying, like, oh, I haven't released it. I'm pushed back my release date because the editing has been so daunting for me. And
Hmm.
it's taking up so much of her mental space. And
Yeah.
And now it's pushing out these listeners who want to listen to her content, who
Yeah.
could even become potential clients for her, but it's
Yeah.
pushing it all out for her another week or two because she hasn't been able to edit because she doesn't have the mental capacity because it's
Sure.
draining.
It is draining.
Like, if we hire somebody though, I mean, I know, like, trust me, I know that like hiring is not always an option, but sometimes for certain things, it just makes sense and it can relieve the mental like burden that we have by
Yeah.
getting help.
100%. Yeah, I love how you said that. Especially, I always tell my online coaches, like, I understand that when you're an online coach, a lot of the times, like, that is your bread and butter, right? You're an entrepreneur, 1,000%. So you might not always have the funds, but
Yeah.
I always tell them, like, if you can outsource the things in your of your podcast that you don't necessarily enjoy doing, do
Yes.
it, because then you can save so much time focusing on your coaching business.
Yeah, yeah, who knows? Like, and maybe that time that you freed up hires another client who, more than covers the cost of what you're spending now. And
Exactly.
that's huge. Like for
Hmm.
me, it's been huge having help in different areas. Like, yeah,
Yes.
like the podcast is like still my focus. Like I do everything by myself, but like in other aspects of my business, I'm like, okay, like hiring away because I'm like, I
Yes.
can't do it all.
Yes. Isn't
Right.
that so interesting too how like I love that's why I love like the entrepreneur journey and stuff because we invest in each other. Like it's like
Yes.
we have like our own ecosystem that
We
we
I was thinking about that.
Yeah. And I
Yes.
and we get it. And I love that. Like I love that mindset. I love that we all get it. That's why I love working with online coaches more than I love working with like either private companies or things like that because private companies are a little bit more like, I don't know if I want to pay that. Like I don't know. They don't understand the time, right? The time that you're putting into something.
Yeah.
And online coaches and people in the online space, they get it. They know. They've invested probably more like a lot of times already, you know what I mean? And so they're very much like, yep, tell me your price, this, that, you're going to do this, this. Okay, great. Send me an invoice. And I'm
Yes.
like, I love it. But we all need help. Like, I need help. You need help. Like, we all outsource things in order to keep our
Yeah.
businesses running.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I just so much like I believe in that, like mentaling the or mentally reducing the mental burden, like
Yeah. Yeah.
reducing all of that because like our mental headspace is so important. Like if we are not feeling clear minded at the end of the day, we can't do anything.
100%. I
Yeah.
totally agree. I'm the same way.
Right? It's so much. I want to ask you, this is kind of, we didn't talk about this ahead of time at all, but I just want to ask you, like, do you have like any self-love tips or self-care, like tips that you would share? Because when you are working for others and you are, getting your busy schedule and doing all of that, like, how are you taking care of yourself?
Yeah, that's for me. I feel like the self love journey is like never ending.
Yeah.
It's literally never ending. Um, this is gonna sound kind of weird because I think people probably think like, what? That's crazy. But I love being in community.
Mm,
That for me is and it's so funny because I am an introvert. Like it's taken me a really long time to be in community and to network and to kind of find my rhythm in that community. But now that I have, I love it. Like I love being in community, especially when I see small business owners or online coaches lifting each other up and getting to know each other and kind of even like collaborating and thinking like, okay, you do this and you do that and how can we throw an event, you know?
yes.
That and even though that's work, like everything kind of takes work, right? That's work that I genuinely love. I I love putting on spaces where people can come and connect with each other. That for me is like that's part of like how I do self-love. Like I really do because it's really hard for me to stay in one spot. Like I've tried reading and I've tried yoga and I get so bored, girl. Like I'm almost positive I have like undiagnosed
Yeah.
ADHD.
Yeah.
I swear I do. But because I get so like okay, I need to be doing something. Like for me being still is really hard.
Yeah.
And so when I'm on the go and I'm on the move, I'm so happy. Like I'm so excited.
So it's like a form of self-love to you to be connecting with others and to be
Yeah.
like seen and be heard, and also be seeing them and just completely connecting with them. And you
Yeah.
can do it like, I guess it makes sense that then you can do it while you're on the go, or you can do it while you're kind of doing other things, or even is this kind of like online community connection?
Online, in
Yeah.
person, like community
Yes.
events. I love being out there and I love doing that. And I think I honestly think it comes from like, so I have a 3 year old.
Oh,
And so I had her 3 years ago, and it was during the pandemic, which was really hard because I couldn't see anybody. And I was like, it was me, my baby, and my husband were all stuck at home. And it was so sad. Like, and then I got into a postpartum depression. And so that
mm,
was like super, like a really hard time for me.
yeah.
And I couldn't, there were times where like I couldn't get out of bed. I wasn't socializing. I kind of kept to
Oh,
myself.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's been like a 3 year climb
Got
of
you.
where this year I feel like myself and I feel
Oh,
like, okay, here we are again. Like, I love myself. I love what I'm doing, right? I
yes.
genuinely love my clients. I'm super grateful and thankful. And I kind of feel like I found a rhythm now with my kid. So now
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm outside, y'all. Like, I'm back.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think because I didn't have that for so long, I'm just embracing it like 1,000%. Like for me being in community, I'm like, this is where I'm meant to be 1,000%.
Yeah, it brings you almost like back to yourself, brings you back to,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
I love
yes.
the story. I love what you're sharing because so many people like after having kids, like whether it's postpartum depression or whether it's just your own journey of kind of, reconfiguring your life, like just whichever scale it is, it changes everything.
A hundred
And so many
percent.
people go through that, and there are people who remain kind of lost for a while. And so
Yeah,
being very intentional, like you shared, you were so intentional about your journey back,
yeah,
and finding community and how much that
yeah,
I love it. I'm so
yeah.
huge believer. Like I have my online sisterhood community that meets weekly, and I'm just such a huge believer in like how important it is. And I like the reason I have mine hosted online is because so many people that, are very busy, or moms, or whoever, even people who struggle with like mental health, it can be really hard to get out of the house
A
for a
hundred
time
percent.
and a date weekly to like meet people. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, okay, we're bringing it to you. Just like, I don't care if your kids are screaming in the background, if your
Yeah,
dog is barking, like just
yeah,
hop on the Zoom call. Like we are here. So
yeah.
I'm
A
really
thousand percent. What do you think some things for you? Like, what are some things for you
glad.
that you practice self-love?
So I'm actually very like, oh, I know the answer right off the top of my head because I'm going through it again. And this is like the thing as a self-love mentor, it can be so vulnerable and hard to share this side of the story because I think people look to mentors and coaches and think that we always have it all together, right? That's why we're teaching. But we don't. The reason we're
No.
teaching this is because we are the ones who need this and who need these reminders, and we've been through it.
Yep.
And so for me, I have struggled for a very long time with anxiety and depression. And I know what I need to do to feel like myself, but there are days where, I mean, running a business, being a nurse full time, doing all of these things, like it gets me very busy and I get caught up. So I'm currently back in a season of like, okay, like what are the non negotiables for pouring into myself that will make me
Mm,
feel good? And honestly, like maybe a cheesy way to sum it up is treating myself like a plant. Like I
mm,
am like, okay, sunshine, water, movement, get outside, get good nutrients. And so I'm currently focusing. I didn't realize with my business and just with everything I'm doing, how much time I've been spending in a very sedentary position indoors. And I'm
mm,
just feel like I'm just sitting all the time and
mm.
working. And I was like, hold on though, like the work, when I don't feel like myself and when I'm not getting movement in or getting sunshine in, the work that I'm doing isn't very productive. So it really is like I have to sit here all day to get something done. But then it's like, okay, if we incorporate more time, pouring into myself and caring for myself, then things get done quicker. My mind is more sharp. I feel better. So yeah, those are mine right now is like
I love that.
absolutely like sunshine is probably like the biggest one.
Yes, girl.
Pasta.
Oh my gosh, I love all of that because it's so true, especially as business owners. We forget we're locked in offices, we're inside, and
Yes.
yeah, sometimes I'm like, wait, when's the last time I went into my backyard and just like sat there?
Yes.
So I feel that, yeah.
Yes. And and that's the thing too, I keep telling myself, I'm like, hold on, like let me just create a little area where I can sit out there and like work on my business. But like
Mm.
just and why like sit inside in an office? I could sit outside for a while or, just
Yeah, and that's something I think that like it's a good reminder because as like business owners, we have that flexibility. And I don't know why sometimes we don't do it and I think we just put it on the back burner because like sometimes my best friend will be like, "Leave your house, go to a coffee shop, go to a
yeah.
co-working space." She's like, "Don't you know you can work from anywhere?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, so true. I forgot."
You really just sparked you're a super creative person. Like I'm having downloads like crazy during this call. But no, and that just like sparked for me too. I was like, hold on, there's like an outdoor coffee shop like a couple blocks away that I used to go to all the time. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, yeah. I forget too. It's okay. For whatever reason, we just become hermit crabs. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
And the longer that you are, like the easier it is to stay in that zone. And it's like
Yeah.
harder to get up and get outside and
Yeah. Oh
do
my
all
gosh. I know. I hope people are like, "Oh yeah, me
right. Yeah.
too." Yeah.
So for everyone listening, just go, even if you're still working, even if you're still sitting down doing something, just at least just change the location, like the minimum.
Absolutely. Yeah, like are you sad or have you just not gone outside for 5 days?
I love that so much. Oh my God. Okay, let us know like where can everyone find you? How can they work with you? Like what is going on in your world right now?
Yes, so my Instagram is at Gaia_te. And it's funny because it's in Spanish. My name is Kaya, and then te in Spanish, when you put it all together, it means shut up. And I always tell people, I'm not telling you to shut up. It's a funny nickname I got a long, 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 long time ago. So it's Gaia_te on Instagram. And right now, I have a couple things going on. So I have my podcast boot camp that
Ooh,
is going on May 8th and 9th,
nice.
and that is going to be a 2-day live boot camp. And that's for anyone that currently has a podcast. So if you already have a podcast, but you're ready to kind of like either grow, you're feeling stuck, you're not loving your content, you're not loving your process, I want you to come to this boot camp and we're going to just rearrange things. I'm going to teach you how to love this process. And we're also going to teach you how to stay organized. So we're going to do a content calendar and we're going to make everything fun because I'm all about making it fun.
So good.
Yeah. And then I have my one on one coaching. And so the one on one coaching is usually for my online coaches or just my clients that are ready to like fully launch a podcast.
Uh,
And so that's a full launch podcast and it's, or a launch package, sorry. And it's 3 months,
one on one. Oh my
one on
gosh.
one. Yeah. And that's three
Double
months. And
launch.
that's
Wow.
basically like building your podcast from the ground up all the way to a launch and just making sure that I set you up like for success.
That's huge because I didn't realize you did it one on one. When I did mine, like I did a course with somebody when I learned how to launch, and it was a group program,
Mhm.
and I thought there was going to be a lot more one on one time, and I felt so lost. I felt
Mm.
completely lost because I really needed it to be one on one. So I, oh my God, that's so huge that you do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I've been thinking of doing a group program, but
Yeah,
I just
maybe
feel
that's
like
small enough.
yeah, like your podcast is just so personal. Your story is so tailored to you. It's really hard to do like an over when it comes
Mhm.
to a launch. It's really hard to do like an like message, like a bigger message when it's like really tailored to someone like for a launch.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, and where can we get into these? Is it on your Instagram?
Yeah, if you just go to my Instagram and either there's my Calendly link on there, so you can book a 30-minute discovery call with me, or you can just shoot me a DM. I'm working on a website. It's not up yet, but soon.
That's so awesome. I love it. Okay, so just head over to your Instagram. Of course, I'll put it into the show notes. But yay, I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really, really, really enjoyed it. So
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for having me, Audrey. I really appreciate it. I love you.
thank you.